Hi, Lisa with Green Hook Studio here with another repair video. This one was sent to me from Georgia by a family who needed an owl repaired for a little girl who is not so little anymore, but didn't want to have to throw away her holy favorite stuffed animal from when she was little. They reached out to me and I was happy to take on the challenge for her. So please join me as I re-knit the holes in Claudia's owl. Fresh out of the shipping box, let's see what we're working with. I had seen pictures, but it's definitely always better to see it in person and really take stock of what the holes look like. And I also wanted to see how much of the original yarn was there, so I knew what I could work with and what I needed to go try to match with other yarns at the store. It's got several big holes on the front of the body, the armpit, the head, and then the skirt has runs that have pulled out majorly on the front and the back. Now it's time to get to work with my favorite tools, a knit picker and lots of stitch markers. I'll use the stitch markers to catch all of the pulled out stitches so that they don't pull out any further. Some of them were real tight and I needed a needle to pull them up enough to get the stitch marker through. But then I went ahead and marked all the stitches with stitch markers so that they wouldn't pull out any further while I was trying to work on the project. Found an extra small pull in the back that I marked with a stitch marker, so again it did not pull out any further while I was working. And now I'm going to work on the skirt now that the body is under control. Again, marking with stitch markers every pulled stitch so that it does not pull out any further, and then the stitch markers will also hold each stitch in place while I work on re-knitting each stitch, each column. Now that everything is safely clipped off so it won't unravel while I'm working, I'm starting the process of re-knitting all the sections that still have original yarn that I can use. I will go column by column, stitch by stitch, and patch these holes before I will add in any new yarn as needed that I was able to color match from my stash and from Michael's. With a little editing magic, now this section is all finished being reknit with its original yarn. Now I'm going through the same process with the large hole on the front of the doll's body. Just re-knitting up that column, column by column, row by row, until this section is finished as well. I was fortunate that there was a lot of the original yarn in this doll that had just pulled out. As needed throughout the process, once I had a more closed up space, I would refill the stuffing before closing the hole completely. Here I am just finishing up re-knitting on the brown section of the arm as well, again using all the yarn from the original before I add anything new in. The face was a little bit messier to re-knit with the original yarn, but I untangled it as best that I could and re-knit some stitches with the original yarn from the face to start closing up this hole. Before getting started on the more complicated parts of the head, I decided to go ahead and re-knit the skirt because it was a lot more straightforward. So again, just stitch by stitch, going up the column with my knit picker tool until this section is re-knit. With more editing magic, this section is now completely re-knit, and I will repeat the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to do a little bit more tidying up before I can work in the new yarn and close the holes completely. There were some stitches that needed fastening off up at the top of this section, as well as some frayed ends that were broken, that because this is a stuffed animal and not a blanket or flat item, I could just tie them off and stuff them inside, which is very secure and also very easy to do, to just hide them inside. I did notice another piece that needed re-knit right here that I finished up now that I could see more what I was doing with that edge cleaned up. And then I could re-knit what was left up here once I could really see what I was doing. Now I've moved on to cleaning up the hole in the front of the face, just weaving in some of the ends. I didn't have another one to tie this off with, and I didn't want it to pull, so I just wove it in a bunch of times and then hid the end inside. Then I tried to decide what I wanted to do about the top of the head. I cut out the original mend so that I could completely re-knit this top corner of her head and make her look a lot more complete again. So this was going to take a lot more finding the loops and clipping them off and reknitting anything that had original yarn. I decided to jump down and go ahead and get this piece finished. All it needed was a little bit of weaving in. So I just wove the ends in several different directions so that if they pull, they're not pulling completely out, because they can't pull 3 directions at the same time. That's always my goal with weaving in ends, to go at least 2, if not 3 directions, so that things don't pull out. More end weaving and cleanup. I did a combination of weaving in and tying off all these loose threads on the skirt, on the front and back, so that I could clean this up in preparation of reknitting the new section of it. With everything else all cleaned up, it's now time to tackle the hard parts. I'm going to finish up reknitting the hole in the face. There was a section at the top of the hole that I was able to reknit with original yarn before adding in the new yarn that I had found at Michael's and matched pretty closely. To reknit inside a hole like this, the way that I like to do it is to weave new yarn across, back and forth for each row that you need to reknit, leaving a little extra on the side that's about the same width as the hole, because that is going to get pulled across as you are knitting. So just zigzag back and forth to make new rows. Now I unclip one stitch at a time to make the new column of that stitch. I do not unclip the other ones until I'm ready, because I don't want them to get pulled out by my knitting motions. So after doing all the other ones, here's the last piece in that bottom section. I just kind of work it out a little bit with my fingers to even up the stitches. And now that I've got the bottom brought back up to meet the top, I'm going to sew the bottom rows to the top rows that I previously reknit with the original yarn. Now I'm going to work on closing up the hole in the arm and side. Again, weaving in the new yarn across so that I have new rows to make. And here you'll see that I am working with a small crochet hook because at some point in between the last clip and this one I broke my knit picker and had to order a new one for same day delivery because they didn't have it at the store. So I'll be using my crochet hook until then. But it still works just fine to close up this hole. With that piece finished off with the reknitting process, I tied off the brown yarn and got to work on reknitting the stitches that were missing from the front of the chest so that I can then sew these pieces together and close the hole completely. I took a break in between the arm and the chest and my new knit picker arrived, so thank you very much, Amazon. Now her chest and arm are all closed up, and I will just weave in this end for security and then add a little extra stuffing to make her a little extra huggable again, since who knows how much stuffing fell out when she had that giant hole. Next, for reknitting, I am going to patch this skirt. Now, I'm reknitting this in a different way than patching holes in the body because this is a flat piece. I insert my knitting needles into the original stitches that were left that I clipped off and am now just reknitting regular knitting style across the whole row of stitches. I leave my needle on the end of the thread I'm working with so that I can sew into the edge of the original spot where this would have been attached to make kind of a fake knit stitch to attach it and then go up to the next row to continue. So then once that is done, I will flip it and purl the other side back and repeat this all the way up until all the rows are reknit. Partway through, I switch to white for the white stripe, and then I will bind off, just regular knit style. With the skirt piece reknit, now it's time to crochet the edge. This edge is just mostly chains and then joined with a single crochet about every 4 or 5 stitches. So I matched my thread and I joined it with the original and just did a few chains and single crochet joins to complete the new edging. After weaving in all my ends and trimming any extra bits, this part of the skirt is finished. Reknit with a new edge and ready to go. Now we have to repeat the same thing on the other side. Now I'll just take a moment to admire her beautiful finished skirt before diving into this monster hole in her head. The first part of rebuilding here was adding in some white or cream. She was missing a little bit of stitching on her eye, and I wanted it to match the other eye as best as I could. So I needed to add in a column of white on the side before I could go ahead with reknitting the rest of the head with gray. So I am reknitting one stitch up and then attaching it to the side like I did when I was reknitting that piece of the skirt to get up to the next level. So get up to the next level, attach it, and then knit through and repeat until it gets to the top of that section. She also needed a few more white stitches pulled up across the top of her eye, so I went ahead and got those done while I had the white attached. Just bringing up a new stitch and clipping it off, then going into the next stitch to pull a new stitch up and through. Now with everything reknit with its original as much as possible in this big hole in her head, I went ahead and reknit part of this section. It was lower than the others, and so I had to bring it up with a few new stitches before I could use the same reknitting technique using my needle that I had in the skirt. This was such a large section that it needed the needle and not just the knit picker. So once I had that row even, I was able to insert my knitting needle and get to work knitting and purling row by row to make a new corner of this owl's head. Every so often I would check my height to see where I was, and then I was finally able to add in these white stitches from the front. I just unclipped them and added my knitting needle right in place. So then I could do some knitting across the front with the white. This is me double checking how many rows of white I need. I was able to do a few stitches of white and then the rest of the row in gray, so that I could complete the eyes as close to the original as possible. Once I got the new section tall enough to match with the other side of her head, I chose to weave my needle through all the stitches and pull my knitting needle out to sew the rest of the top shut, rather than doing a standard knitting bind off and having more of a harsh edge. I wanted to sew the top shut in a way that would coordinate but not quite match with the original soft rounded head. And then of course, before finishing sewing the hole shut, I needed to add a little more stuffing to make her a little bit more complete. Time for a little massage of the stuffing and the stitches before I can put on the finishing touch. Let's check my work here in the back. I'm very pleased with how this new corner turned out. Now she needs a new tuft. She can't just go around with one tuft like she has been. She needs to match now that she has a corner of her head again. So I cut thread to match. This is embroidery floss that I found in very similar colors, and I am just using a Ryan knot to pull it through, which was a little easier said than done with the thick threads, but I pulled it through with my crochet hook, tied the knot and pulled it tight, and then gave it a little haircut as a finishing touch. Here she is, all ready to go home. No more holes, no more runs, and she even has a new tuft to match her old one. I am very happy that I was able to do this for this family. If you know of a stuffed animal or a knit or crochet item that is in need of repair so it doesn't have to get thrown away and it can still be loved in the future, please reach out to me through my website, greenhookstudio.com, to see more information on repairs and reach out to me for a quote. I would love to help you. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you will subscribe for more content like this, as well as crochet tips, tricks, and full pattern videos. I hope to see you back here real soon. Thanks for watching.